Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thanks to members of the press for being here. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about something not just from the federal level, but as we're seeing, this is something that we're going to have to discuss from the ground up, especially when it comes to not just pushing back on this administration, but from organizing at the local level so that we can be prepared for any intervention by this administration. I also want to thank Santa Cruz Community Health for allowing us to be here today to have this very, very important conversation. What we heard today at the roundtable that was convened was basically community leaders coming together to talk about not just what's happening, but what we can do together going forward. Obviously, the words that we heard was fear, frustration, but most importantly, it's about trust. It's about trust, not just with our law enforcement, but with all community organizations and with our communities, to make sure that the people of Santa Cruz, of the Central Coast, of the 19th Congressional District continue to have trust in the institutions that do so much to protect the most vulnerable, that do so much to protect our citizens here in the 19th Congressional District. Let me just make a couple of remarks based on what's going on at the federal level. Let me be clear that the DHS, ICE, and CBP agents are not law enforcement. Instead, they are acting like a lawless, marauding mob posing as police. At the federal level, we are doing what we can to make sure that we prevent further deadly shootings of U.S. citizens and the violation of civil liberties by ICE and CBP agents. And at the local level, what you're seeing here, we're doing everything we can to prevent them and prepare for them from being in our communities. Look, at the as a federal representative, I have called for the removal, resignation of Stephen Miller, who's driving this mass deportation policy. Let's make no bones about it. He is driving this mass deportation policy, and Secretary Noem is implementing this policy. If there's not the removal of those two administration officials, you will see impeachment resolutions in the House that I will support. We are working through legislation, through appropriation, through litigation, our arguments of our moral obligation, but also what we heard today, it's time for coordination and preparation. Now look, when it comes to legislation, I firmly believe that this is another opportunity for Congress, for Speaker Johnson, to make sure that we reestablish our role as a check on the executive branch, to defend civil liberties and create a compromise to place common sense guardrails on ICE and CBP. In the appropriation process, what's going on right now in the Senate, we are using that to negotiate and affect change. Last week, before the shooting that took place on Saturday of Mr. Preddy, I voted no for the DHS appropriations package because I'm not going to be complicit when it comes to ICE and CBP agents' lawlessness. This week, the negotiations that are taking place right now are for legislation, not an executive action, but legislation combined with the appropriations to tighten the rules for use of warrants, to make sure there's a uniform code of conduct and enhanced training for ICE and CBP, and that there's no masks worn, and that they do wear body cameras, as well as independent investigations for transparency and accountability. But with this Trump administration in charge, and with the capitulating Republican-led House and Senate in charge, the leadership that we were seeing on these important issues has got to come from the bottom up, has got to come from this community on up. And that is exactly why we are here today, to do what we do best in the 19th Congressional District. We come together, we work together, we partner together to protect not just our most vulnerable, but to prepare to protect everybody in our communities. So I'm proud that there were so many people here to turn out, our public servants who are present, and all of us are proud to be able to come together so that we can continue to not just maintain the trust that our community has in our public institutions, but that they can have faith in our public institutions. be it the police, be it community health organizations, be it nonprofits, be it Second Harvest, be it their political leaders. We want to make sure that we act not for what's going on in Minnesota, but we act for the people here in the 19th Congressional District. So again, I appreciate everybody for being here, being a part of this, and I turn it over to Santa Cruz County Sheriff Clark.
Thank you, Congressman. Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Chris Clark. I'm the Sheriff Coroner of Santa Cruz County, and to be honest, I there's so much anxiety and fear going on in our community, and I can't imagine the conversations that happen literally on a nightly basis, based on everything that we're seeing both locally and nationally at the dinner table, talking about things with our kids when it comes to food, how are we going to eat, when it comes to education and school-related issues, and then work, and then how do we provide for our families, and not the least of which is safety and public safety, for which obviously I've spent my life so far dedicated to. And I want to make a couple things clear. One is that, and you should know, so just to reaffirm, us as local law enforcement do not enforce immigration-related laws. We don't do that. That separation happens because we have to be, we have to be coordinated with our community, and we have to work with them to be able to fix issues. People are not going to go dial 911 if they're afraid that immigration status is going to come into play. We do not enforce immigration-related laws. What you've seen on TV, and I want to kind of address that a minute, with some of the really terrible, ugly, tragic things that we've seen in Minneapolis and other places. Us in law enforcement, I can speak for us in this county, and I know I can speak for Sheriff Panetta. We in law enforcement have a duty to intercede. If we are present, we see things like excessive uses of force or blatant just violations of the law, we have a duty to intercede. That goes the same with the federal law enforcement as it even does with our own, and we're trained in that. The other thing is that if you suspect, and I want to make this point known as well, there is a lot of anxiety and with regards to, do we know if it's ICE? Do we know if it's Border Patrol, DEA, FBI? If anybody approaches anyone and you're concerned that there could be some sort of question with regards to, are they a legitimate federal law enforcement officer, dial 911. That's what I've told folks in my community. Dial 911. We will go, we'll come, we'll show up, and we'll be able to determine, are they who they say they are? And so if there's any question with that, we want to make sure that we're addressing that, and that there's not folks running around taking advantage of people for situations like that. And then lastly, as far as safety, to touch on the sense that if anything happens in this community, what you have, frankly, is really special in Santa Cruz County. And I'll tell you, regionally, with Monterey County and San Benito, the coordination that we have. Speaking for us in Santa Cruz County, like my relationship with the District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Jeff Rizell, is really, really close. We have coordinating meetings with his office, with other police chiefs. If something terrible happens, like you've seen in Minneapolis, we have a process in place of investigating those situations. We have a protocol in place. This is nothing new for us when it comes to critical incidents, and that's the process we would execute and investigate those things. And so, really, I just want to thank Congressman Panetta for bringing all of us together from different sectors of the community, from food, from healthcare, from the police. It takes all of us. We are part of the fabric of this community. Many of us live here. We raise our families here, and it's so important to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support the folks that live here. And that's what I will continue to do as your sheriff. And I'm just so proud to be a part of this group. So with that, I will turn it over to Monterey County Sheriff Tina Nieto.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming out, and I want to thank everybody who came out and shared what's going on. Congressman Panetta, thank you for bringing us together. I wrote a bunch of notes, but I sat there in this room and I listened to what was going on in this room, and here's what I heard over and over again. The erosion of trust in our institutions, the fear, the anxiety, the struggles that our most vulnerable populations are going through. And I've been in this business for 37 years now, 37 years of pledging to protect my community. I'm also a veteran, so I did my 8 years protecting the nation. And I sit in my living room every night and I watch what's going on in our nation, and it bothers me. It not only bothers me, I sit with tears in my eyes with my partner as we say, what is going on? We have dedicated our lives to protecting our communities. And like everybody, this is not a beginning, because I know we've been working on these issues. How do we protect Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, San Benito County? Because these are communities that are made up of the most vulnerable. We're farm workers, we're ag, we're hospitality, and they deserve to be defended by the people that we ask to put trust in us. Every single person here, we're in some sort of institution where people have to trust us to do our jobs. What I want to let the community know that Sheriff Clark already talked about is that every law enforcement agency in the state of California has a duty to intervene if they see an illegal use of force taking place. It doesn't say if it's our federal partners or if it's a municipality, but if it's law enforcement, they're supposed to stop the action. We're held to that standard. What I can tell you in Monterey County, as your sheriff, if you're watching this, is that I'm here to protect our vulnerable populations. I'm here to protect the laws that we put in place, because I believe that we're a rule of law, and I too am tired of what I view as some of the lawlessness, as some of the people not being held accountable for their actions. And my hope and my prayer for our nation, to our president, is to do the right thing. Please do the right thing. And I'll just start crying, so I'm going to walk away. I'm going to turn it over to Santa Cruz DA Jeff Rosell. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I just want to start by thanking all of you for being here. I think it's incredible, and it is a sign of this community that there's so many people out there that are interested in this. I want to thank Congressman Panetta for bringing all the folks that you see before you here together. And what you see before you are people from education, health, social services, agriculture, law enforcement. And that is what makes Santa Cruz County and Monterey County a special place, because we have coordination like this. And I want to tell you, on behalf of law enforcement, that is exactly the model that we have. All of the chiefs, the sheriff, the DA's office work together in Santa Cruz County and row in the same direction. And we are all committed to protecting the citizens and the people that live in Santa Cruz County. If there is some sort of a violation of law, rest assured, we will investigate it under state authority. And if somebody deserves to be prosecuted, we will work on that, and we will prosecute to the best of our abilities. So I just want to say in closing, thank you for being here, and thank you to everybody up here for being so collaborative, which is exactly what law enforcement is like in our county. Thank you.
Before we get to Eric, if you want to say a few words. Sure. Supervisor Hernandez, and then Eric.
So really briefly, I want to thank Supervisor Monica Martinez's staff that's here, I think somewhere there, for roping this in. Last week we had the opportunity to create the ad hoc committee called SHIELD. I still haven't memorized the acronym: Safeguarding Health, Inclusion, Essential Services, and Local Defense. So we did that so that we can respond quickly to any issues that come up, so that we could create policies, ordinances, resolutions that help create safety for our community. Right now, within our our human services department, we're seeing a decrease in people filing for Medi-Cal. We're seeing that people are scared to go to essential services in Watsonville. Just last week, when ICE came to Watsonville, folks were calling, they're scared to go to work, scared to work in agriculture, scared to work in the tourism hospitality industry, and scared to work in construction sites. We can't live with this level of fear. We have to do something. So we're doing we're going to create different policies. We're going to collaborate with our community partners to make sure that we have input from everybody. And so that's what this ad hoc is about, this SHIELD ad hoc that we're doing. And that's pretty much it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica Padilla Chavez, and I serve as the CEO of Your Food Bank, Second Harvest Food Bank. I want to begin by thanking Congressman Panetta for putting this wonderful roundtable together, an opportunity for all sectors of our community to connect and hear firsthand how we are preparing should we see what we're seeing in other parts of the country. I want to publicly state that your food bank has been and will continue to be committed to making sure anyone in our community who is in need of food has the access to it. And we are laser focused on that. And there's a lot we're doing to ensure that our neighbors that may be feeling anxious to come out and pick up food, that they have avenues to obtain it. I want to thank the network of over 65 partner community agencies, many of them schools, some of them government agencies, churches, and the like, for stepping up and supporting us and making sure that we give our neighbors the food they deserve. There is no most important essential need for anybody than food. And I ask our community to stand with us. Your food bank does not operate without you. We need the community to be engaged, and we are here to do what we know we've done well for 53 years. Take care of our Santa Cruz neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Faris Sabah. I serve as your Santa Cruz County Superintendent of Schools. And today we all stand here in solidarity with the students, families, and immigrant communities of Santa Cruz County. We know that students cannot learn if they're feeling fear. And for the past year, we have witnessed a constant attack on immigrant families, our most vulnerable communities, and public education. This is a devastating campaign of injustice and intimidation. In recent weeks, these attacks are escalating into a pattern of lethal violence, followed by brazenly false propaganda to deflect and deny what we've all seen. In public education, we teach lessons from history. What we are seeing in Minneapolis proves once again that when the rights of the most vulnerable communities are under attack, soon all of our rights are under attack. The only question is how we will respond. I want to thank Congressman Panetta for convening this important conversation today as we assess our region's resources, preparation needs. And I applaud Congressman Panetta for voting no on the recent appropriations bill to continue to fund these brazen attacks on our communities. We cannot fund violence, injustice, and unaccountability. We must urge our senators to hold this line. Locally, we have a strong network of partners who are providing a support resources and training to our immigrant community, including the leaders standing here today. Our schools have an important role. Schools are and must continue to be safe and trusted spaces for every student and family. Schools are more than just places for learning. They are centers for well-being, for food distribution, health and mental health support, and trusted community spaces. Let there be no doubt about one thing: every child has a right to a public education regardless of immigration status. And our schools do not cooperate and will not cooperate with immigration enforcement. We do not collect information about immigration status, and we do not allow immigration officers on our campuses without a warrant signed by a judge. Schools have clearly established protocols for responding to any attempted immigration enforcement. The Santa Cruz County Office of Education works with the Santa Cruz County Immigration Coalition to provide resources, training, and legal information accessible online through our website, susderechos.info. We are also partnering with the Santa Cruz County Supervisor's new SHIELD subcommittee to carefully evaluate any additional steps that we can take to safeguard our community. Today, I want to ensure our community that there have been no attempts at immigration enforcement actions at schools here in Santa Cruz County. We will immediately notify our community if that is to change. To our families, now is the time to strengthen our relationship with schools as trusted allies in your children's well-being. Ask your school and nonprofit providers about child safety plans and why they are so important to your family. Attend Know Your Rights trainings and volunteer with supported nonprofits that lead this work, such as Community Action Board, Community Bridges, Second Harvest Food Bank, your Allied Rapid Response, and so many others here today and in our community. I want to conclude by once again thanking Congressman Panetta for gathering us here today for an important conversation about the safety of our community. This is a moment when each of us are called to respond, from demonstrating and advocating to providing safeguards, services, and support. Now is a time to raise our voices for our students, for our families, and for the values we uphold here in Santa Cruz County and across the Central Coast. Thank you for being here, and thank you for standing up for our community.
Thank you.
And I'd like to welcome Donaldo Hernandez to come on up next.
Thank you, and thank you for being here this afternoon. I'm Donaldo Hernandez. I'm a local physician, internal medicine, hospital medicine practicing here in Santa Cruz County. I'm also a commissioner with the Central California Alliance for Health, which provides Medi-Cal services for the entire Central Coast. One of the things I really wanted to touch on, and I guess there's a human face when it comes to things that I've seen, it's really a second pandemic, if you will, a man-made policy-driven pandemic. The communities that suffered the most during COVID were our farm worker communities, our agricultural communities, our multi-generational families, and they fed us throughout the entire of the pandemic. They showed up to work. There was no way that they could remotely work, and we were all better because of it. And now, because of these policies that are being generated out of Washington and the way that they're trying to be implemented is affecting that same population again with as much devastation as the pandemic did. Over 70% of the admissions to Dominican Hospital came from those communities with COVID, and their health is now being affected again. We can talk about stress, we can talk about the effect on communities at large, but what we're really talking about here is people, human beings that have medical problems and a whole host of things. And I'm grateful that Congressman Panetta got us here today, that we work with our law enforcement individuals, that we work with the Farm Bureau and people that provide the services for people within our community. But it comes down to that very thing that we're talking about, and this is what that Sheriff Nieto talked about, and that is trust. A breakdown in trust in their communications. I feel like this is actually quite deliberate in terms of the dissolution of trust that our communities have in institutions. We see it in healthcare with people pushing back on immunizations, and what we know is sound medical science. We know that they're pushing back on elected officials and what's happening there, and we also know they're pushing back on law enforcement. These pillars of our community that we rely on to keep us living together and living comfortably and interacting in a safe and healthy way are being dissolved. And I think it's time for us to work together to make sure that we reinvigorate our relationships with one another and in our community, working with our established individuals, our people that we look to for leadership and to continue looking forward. Again, healthcare is here for that. We'll stand beside everybody. Healthy communities, absolutely. And thank you again for all your attention. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Doctor. Thank you. Appreciate that. We're going to close out with Elaine Johnson, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Elaine Johnson, Executive Director of Housing Santa Cruz County and the President of the NAACP. Our civil rights are trying to be stripped. We cannot go back there. I cannot tell you how much, especially in the month of January, as we celebrate Martin Luther King, that we are reminded that all of the work that our ancestors did to get us here today, we cannot go back. And so I am inviting every one of us who comes out, whether you're on Ocean Street, you're whatever you're doing, we must do more. There are so many of our community members who are afraid to leave their homes. As Ferd said, they're afraid to go to school. They're afraid to go get their housing vouchers that I'm hearing about with my other hat. And we just cannot go back. I'm incredibly grateful for Congressman Panetta bringing us together, because it brought me comfort knowing that I'm not carrying this by myself, because it's a lot for all of us to carry. And so what I ask of you is to remind yourselves every day when you get up, whether it's at work, whether it's at the store, wherever that is, to remind yourself, what can I do today to make sure we don't go back? Because we're in this together. We have to worry about our neighbors, we have to worry about our friends, we have to worry about our coworkers, because everybody is impacted right now. So I say thank you so much for coming out this morning, and it's a pleasure being with my colleagues here.
Nice. That's exactly why I had your closer out. Thank you. Once again, let me thank Santa Cruz Community Health. Let me thank the members of the media and definitely all our partners here. Open it up for a few questions, please. Please. And if you could state what source you're from, please.
Radio.
Thank you.
Radio. So we're seeing in Minnesota, violations of it appears to be First Amendment rights as well as Fourth Amendment rights, lack of warrants, and busting into homes, as well as attacking protesters who are reporting, and so on and so forth. Will local law enforcement be involved in enforcing and protecting constitutional rights here, and what would that look like?
Sure.
Yeah, so as I discussed, what we've seen has been, these events have, as we've all witnessed, involved, violations of what could be the Constitution, could be violations of state law. And so, as I mentioned before, that's exactly what local law enforcement is here for. We, as I mentioned, we have a duty to intercede. If we're there, if things are witnessed, there's an investigation that'll take place. And then we'll work with the district attorney's office. We're going to work with the state, and so we'll be able to take all that information and obviously investigate that to the first extent we can, and then prosecute and hold whomever's responsible with that. So.
As we're seeing in Minnesota.
What outlet are you with, ma'am?
I'm with Santa Cruz Community Health. I'm with the providers here.
Okay.
So my question is, as we see in Minnesota, the legal system is unable to support the number of people who are being taken and follow up on them to make sure that their rights are there. They're whisking all these children off to Texas, and I think a lot of those kids are actually Americans who are on the soil. So my question is, are we in this county learning lessons from what's happening in Minnesota and planning to put in place the lawyers, the legal system, all of that to prevent this happening here? Right?
Yeah, and so I'll just let you know that so I can speak for Santa Cruz County. We have a very unique situation here when it comes to the coordination and the collaboration amongst every agency in the county. I mean, you're seeing all of that coordination up here right now. And from a law enforcement standpoint, where we can come in and leverage partners from anywhere to be able to figure out what does justice look like for whomever that may be, that is our commitment. And that's what we're here today to talk about. Obviously, Congressman Panetta brought us all together to be able to discuss that in more depth. Like, how can we, based on what we're seeing, be able to do this differently and better, obviously, for the people we're serving. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Question.
Ma'am?
So I'm with Good Times. My name is Joan Hamill, but I'm also a mom. I have 2 kids at home, and the dinner table conversation turns to what can we do as a family, and how can I, as the leader of my family, I'm a single parent, bring hope to this next generation that I saw as the hope. They're telling me it feels hopeless. What would you say to that next generation to give them hope and maybe something that would inspire them to action?
Yeah, it was funny. One of the presenters at our roundtable was a doctor who Dr. Hernandez brought. I'm not sure. I forget his name. Scott Drew. And he talked about how he had to have a sit down with his 5 and I think 8-year-old, in which he said, look, what you're seeing on TV, those people, they're not law enforcement. Trying to make a difference between our law enforcement that we have here in our communities to sort of separate and remind our youth, remind our community of what it means to trust law enforcement and to act like proper law enforcement. And so continuing to have those conversations to really remind people what we do here in this community that's building that trust, not just cracking down on people, but making sure not just we escalate situations, we de-escalate situations. We heard about that in the roundtable of how basically law enforcement has the proper training here locally, and that how they understand what it means to use their common sense, what it means to use their training in certain situations. And so I would have those conversations with your children, with other community members, of letting them know, as we're demonstrating right here, that we are here to protect people. We are here to make sure that their rights are upheld, not torn down. That's exactly the purpose of the roundtable.
I could add, I'm also a father of a young man who's at college and another who's a 10th grader in Pajaro Valley Unified School District. And I think we'd all agree that we're experiencing some very dark times and that our democracy is at risk. And when I think about working with young people and seeing how they're looking at their world, I think there's an opportunity for them to participate, to speak up, to stand up, to participate in finding solutions. Because I think that as they find agency and their own voice to be able to share how this is affecting them, it gives me inspiration to recognize the power and the brilliance of our youth, and that they are going to help us to make sure we protect our democracy. And so there are amazing opportunities for youth to engage in a positive way. Jóvenes Sanos with United Way, there's Empower Watsonville with PVPSA, the Youth-Led Leadership Alliance. I could go on and on. Many of these agencies that are here, the Black Student Union, are there to create these opportunities for young people and for them to help us find those solutions. And that partnership with our youth is inspiring to me personally, and it gives me hope, and I think it helps to remind them that some of the things that are most important are things we have to fight for.
Thanks. I think we have time for two more. Hold on, we'll go there and then finish with you, please.
Yes.
And who you with?
I'm with Santa Cruz Local.
Thanks.
So you voted yes on Resolution 448, which involves banking ICE and DHS officers. My opinion is, since this was around the time we were seeing ICE raids in places like Los Angeles, right here in California, how has your opinions towards DHS changed?
Look, first of all, that resolution had nothing to do with ICE and immigration. It did not. It had everything to do with anti-Semitism and about the unfortunate attack that took place in Colorado, even before the one victim died, where a person who was here, unfortunately in undocumented status, attacked peaceful protesters who were purposefully protesting about peace in the Middle East. And so there were, I think, 14 lines that had to do with anti-Semitism and what we're doing as a country to fight against anti-Semitism, something that has risen over, I think, 200% in the last few years. And then in the last line, it thanked law enforcement, including ICE. And so I wasn't going to let that sort of Republican put in line prevent me from standing up and showing my support against anti-Semitism. And that's why I voted yes. Thank you. Next question.
PK has from the Sentinel newspaper.
Of course.
I'm wondering if you can elaborate more on what you think, or what Democrats are asking for in terms of reining in, federal immigration agents. Some of your colleagues have called for the abolition of ICE, the dissolution of it. I wonder if you support that, and if you could just elaborate on.
Look, let's be clear. I think obviously we're going to continue to need immigration enforcement, but the way they do it is the problem right now. The way they're doing it is the problem, in the reckless, ruthless manner that they're out there marauding around, not just going after undocumented, not actually just focusing on anybody and everybody who looks like they're undocumented. This is not the way to do it. And what happens is you end up then harassing not just non-citizens, but citizens as well, as we've seen in Minnesota, as we've seen throughout this country. And what's going on is that you're seeing these deadly incidents that are occurring, that are inevitable, when not only that you have agents acting like that, but you have this administration making these absolutely irresponsible conclusory statements, summing up what they think is happening, and they're trying to tell us what we actually saw and go against what we're actually seeing. And I think that's putting them into a corner right now because of what the people have done to be out there in the streets, peacefully protest and peacefully document exactly everything that these agents are doing. And I would encourage people to continue to do that in a nonviolent way, because right now, that's how we're getting transparency and accountability. But what we want to do legislatively is make sure, and as we heard this in the roundtable, just like our local law enforcement agencies do, you're not going to wear masks. You're going to properly identify. You're going to wear body cams. There's going to be independent investigations. You're not going to search homes without a judicial warrant when it comes to actually doing your job. You're going to be properly trained. We're going to increase the training, not to this reduced 47 days of training in homage to the 47th president, but actually have proper training so that you know how to engage not just in any sort of detentions with undocumented, but how you not just escalate a situation, but how you de-escalate a situation. And most importantly, as I've always heard from law enforcement, use your common sense, use your moral obligation. That's why they hire, that's why people like that should be hired, to understand what it means to serve and protect. That's what we're doing in the United States Congress. That's the negotiations that are going on right now in the United States Senate to basically say, we're not going to be complicit with how ICE and CBP is acting right now. Instead, we're going to negotiate with you, or we're not going to fund you anymore. That's what it comes down to. Again, thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate this opportunity. Thanks for everybody to standing together as we go forward and continuing to do our jobs and serve and protect. Thank you.